Worcester SS, to a constable in the town of Berlin. Greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Berlin qualified to vote in town elections and town affairs to meet at the Berlin Memorial School, 34 South Street, Berlin, Mass. On Monday, the first day of May 2023 at 7:30 p.m. and then in there to act on the following articles or in relation thereto. And you are hereby directed to serve this annual town meeting warrant by posting attested copies at the town hall, the town offices, and the post office at least 7 days before the first day of May. Given under our hand and seal of the town on this third date of April 2023. Respectfully submitted, Berlin Select Board. Chair, Scott R. Hawkins. Vice Chair, Christine Keefe. Clerk, Margaret Stone. Date, April 11, 2023. Pursuant to the within warrant, I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Berlin by posting up attested copies thereof at the town hall, the town offices, and the post office at least 7 days before the time of holding said meeting as within directed. Kevin Pond, Constable.
Is there anything else we need to do right now? Yeah. I'm going to call on the Chair of the Board of Selectmen to speak. Mr. Hawkins.
Thanks. Before I read the motion, I want to point out or say that the Berlin Select Board wants to publicly thank our Fire Chief Michael McQuillan, our Police Chief Eric Schartner, Highway Superintendent Fred Cummings, and all of our highway and public safety personnel who have responded to a series of emergencies that have occurred in the last month. I want to thank each and we thank you each and every day for all you folks do to keep Berlin safe. And then regarding the fatal house explosion on April 14th, we express our greatest thanks to the very special neighbors on Pleasant Street. These individuals ran directly into the blast zone to locate the sole survivor and lift a shattered house frame off of her. These brave acts allowed Berlin Police Officer Molly Plant to swiftly carry the surviving victim to safety just moments before the second and third explosions leveled the structure. To our neighbors on Pleasant Street and to Officer Molly Plant, the town of Berlin is forever grateful for your selfless acts. And finally, we remember our cherished friend, Judy Christensen, who lost her life in that disaster. Judy is deeply missed by all of us. Thank you.
You were given, as you entered, a paper that says electronic voting and has a proposed rule for this year's annual town meeting. I'm going to call on Mr. Hawkins for a motion.
Mr. Moderator, I motion I hereby make the motion to allow electronic voting to govern tonight's town meeting proceedings and to calculate the votes for tonight's proceedings.
The motion is to allow electronic voting to govern tonight's town meeting proceedings and to calculate the votes for tonight's proceedings. That will essentially put in effect the rule on the back here. Anything to be said on this motion? Hearing nothing, I'll ask you to vote. And I'll ask you to vote with electronic just because it's a good thing to do. At this point, I want to get used to it. Please vote now. I apologize, we weren't quite ready for that one. I hadn't warned them it was coming. Okay, I will open the voting now on the allowing electronic voting. Are we up to 100? Anything more coming in? I will call an end to the vote, and we will now check what our results are.
May I ask a question?
178 yes, 5 no. Motion passes. And we will now go to the articles of the warrant. Article, is there a question down here? Yes.
I just want to make sure that we just
You've got to come up here and talk on the mics so everybody can hear you, dear.
Hi, everybody. Brenna Ewing, Pleasant Street. I just want to confirm that we just push yes or no. We don't have to push the little flying airplane. We just hit yes or no.
Yes, yes or no.
Thank
The
you.
third, don't use the third one.
Well, there's also this other one that looks like a paper airplane. I
Yeah,
wasn't sure.
well,
Okay.
it's yes or no, and don't worry about anything else because we wouldn't count it anyway. We only count yeses and nos. Okay, a motion under Article 1, Chris Keefe of the Select Board.
I move to transfer $1,000.
You've got to get closer to the mic.
Oh my gosh. I move to transfer $1,000 from free cash for the payment of the following unpaid prior year's expenses.
Motion's made and seconded. Oh, wait a minute, you need to read the other piece too.
Okay. Michael Berry, FY20 and FY21 armorer stipend, $1,000.
All right, I'll look into it. The motion is as it appears on your warrant. We haven't changed it, so I'm not going to read it further. Do you want to speak to the motion further?
This was something that was incurred in a previous fiscal year.
Stay close to the mic.
In a previous fiscal year, so that is why it's on this warrant. It needs to be paid.
Anyone else? Hearing nothing, I'll ask you to vote. Please take your clicker and vote now. I will close the voting and we will get our results. The vote is 175 yes and 6 no. The motion passes. Article 2, Article Sunset Clause Removal. You have it, Chris?
I move to remove the sunset clauses by which the monies must be expended on the following town meeting articles. Annual Town Meeting FY21, Article 7-1, Town Office Air Handler Replacement. Annual Town Meeting FY21, Article 7-2, Town Office EPDM Roof Replacement. Special Town Meeting FY22, Article 7-1, Town Office Air Handler Replacement, which is additional funding. Special Town Meeting FY22, Article 7-2, Old Fire Station Roof. Special Town Meeting FY22, Article 7-3, Ambulance Replacing 2009. Special Town Meeting FY22, Article 7-5, Recreation Court Upgrades. Annual Town Meeting FY22, Article 20, Cemetery Paving.
And the Finance Committee has a printed recommendation. Does the Finance Committee have a further statement? No. Okay. This is in the same form as it was in your printed warrant. Is there anyone that wants to speak on the motion? I'm not seeing anybody, so I'll ask you to vote. And we'll have an electronic vote. You may start voting now. I'll call a halt to the voting, and we'll get the results. One hundred 169 yes, 7 no. The motion carries in the affirmative. Article 3, replenish the fiscal year 23 reserve fund. Chris Keefe.
I move to transfer $50,000 from free cash to replenish the FY23 reserve fund.
Motion is made and seconded. Are there any questions on this? Finance Committee has a printed recommendation. Do you have any further comment? I've got some. Okay, I'll ask you to vote. Please take your electronic voters, and if you will begin voting now. I'll close the voting, and we will get our results.
181, yes, 10 no.
How many?
181, yes, 10 no.
10 no. 181 yes, 10 no. The motion passes. Article 4, additional funding for 6A1 ambulance replacement. Chris?
I move to transfer $114,000 in ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation to Article 7 of the November 8th, 2021 special town meeting for the purchase and equipping of an ambulance to be spent under the direction of the Fire and EMS Chief.
Motion is made and seconded in the same form as it has been printed. Do you want to speak further to it, Chris?
There are more details in the description, but it's basically because the associated cost with the replacement ambulance had increased after we voted the amount.
Finance Committee has a printed recommendation. Do you have anything further to say? Anyone else want to speak to the motion? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. Electronically. Please vote now. I'll close the voting. 177 yes and 20 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Article 5, Bullet House Historic Preservation Restriction. June Miller, Chair of the Historical Commission. I am a member of the Historical Commission. I say that so it's expository and you know that I am. I'm not going to be presenting this. If you think I'm doing something unfair, scream. June, get really close to the mic, please.
I move to authorize the Select Board to convey a perpetual historic preservation restriction encumbering the Bullard House and a portion of the Bullard House land located at 4 Woodward Avenue, Berlin, and identified by the Board of Assessors as parcel 10.3, lot 15, to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, acting by and through the Massachusetts Historical Commission, on such terms and conditions and for such consideration as the Select Board deems appropriate. Said portion of the parcel to include the land around the Bullard House itself, but not the land occupied by other buildings and structures on the site.
Can I have the motion, please? Since this motion is different, I'm going to read it. I move to authorize the Select Board to convey a perpetual historic preservation restriction encumbering the Bullard House and a portion of the Bullard House land located at 4 Woodward Avenue, Berlin, and identified by the Board of Assessors as parcel 10.315-0 to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, acting by and through the Massachusetts Historical Commission, on such terms and conditions and for such consideration as the Select Board deems appropriate, said portion of the parcel to include the land around the Bullard House itself, but not the land occupied by other buildings and structures on the site. June, you had more to say?
Article 22.
Get really close to the mic.
Sorry. Article 22 at the May 2nd, 2022 annual town meeting awarded Community Preservation Act funding for Bullard House rehabilitation and to support an application for a Mass Historical Commission MPPF, which means Massachusetts Preservation Project Fund, matching grant. Placing a historic preservation restriction on the Bullard House building and land is a requirement for receiving this grant. Because the Bullard House parcel includes the curatorial building and a portion of the 1870 Town Hall elevator addition. This motion excludes the historic preservation restriction from encumbering said structures and the land that they occupy. Under Article 1 of the November 13th, 1995 special town meeting, the town acquired by purchase the Bullard House parcel with the buildings thereon and awarded oversight of said buildings to the Berlin Historical Commission and the land to the Select Board. So the purpose of this preservation restriction is to safeguard the site's preservation by maintaining and protecting its architectural, archaeological, and historical integrity, which was designated in its listing in the National Register of Historic Places in 2011.
Thank you. Does FinCom have any statement on this? Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Yes. Please get close to the mic.
Yep. Carol Leary, Randall Road. You mentioned quite a number of town meetings that we voted for, or special town meetings that we voted for the Bullard House. I've only been here a few years, 12 or maybe 13, and I have been to a few town meetings, 12 or 13, since I've been able to vote in town, and there is, in my mind, a few memories that we have voted to give $300,000 to fix the Bullard House for this, that, or the other thing over the number of years. What type of encumbrances will we perhaps have on this property? And what has happened with all the money? And perhaps someone can give me an amount, say, for the past 10 years that have been raised to refurbish the Bullard House. And please, I mean no disrespect, but in my eyes, this money has gone nowhere.
June, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. In 2016,
Get close to the mic.
In 2016, we were awarded the Bullard House renovations were awarded $55,200, and we have replaced the sills on the front facade at a cost of about $20,000 by Cronenberger and Sons LLC. That was done at the very end of 2021. We have responded to a building survey by Squaw Hollow Restoration LLC, Tim Walhuter, and completed weatherization of the building. We replaced, after the sills were replaced, we also had a customized threshold replaced at the front entrance, and that was a result of the sills being replaced as well. That building survey and the structural supplement to that survey were also completed by Squaw Hollow. All of those improvements totaled about $40,000 of that, maybe $43,000 of that $55,200. So all of that money, I think, so far is well spent, and we still have a remainder that can be used. The $200,000 that the Community Preservation Act has appropriated for us to rehabilitate the Bullard House has allowed for our master planning to be conducted by the commission and architect Dan Barton. That master planning has spent about $5,000 of the $200,000 so far. Master planning is invaluable to what we're trying to do. We're trying to do the best job possible because the building has lingered so long. We have the remainder of that $200,000, and we will need that to remedy drainage, foundation, and many other ancillary problems that will affect the stability of that house. That's where we've spent our money so far.
Would you comment on what the restriction would do and why it is that the state requires it?
If we receive,
Get close.
money from the state, they want to know that the building will be preserved. It's a fairly standard preservation restriction from what I've read of other samples. They have the right to inspect if there's some complaint. They have the right to review changes that we want to make. They have the right to review an archaeological investigation. It's pretty standard stuff, and I have a copy of it if you'd like to read it.
Anyone else? Brenna Ewing? I haven't said this before, but we always ask people to identify themselves and give your address so people have some idea of who you are when you get up to talk.
Hi, everybody. I've been involved in this project since, the 70s. My mother was a big driving force behind saying this building should be used for the town for museum purposes. It's a really cool space because it had the first post office in town in it. It had a ballroom on the second floor, which is still there, but it's so tiny. It's a slice of American life in like 1810 that doesn't exist anywhere to go look at. And if we get this project done, it'll really allow the townspeople to if you think of it in this way, all of our ancestors lived somewhere, and we all have a history. And if you go in this space when it's done, it's going to be like, this room represents what a post office was, and this room is where people danced, and this is where they cooked. And our vision for it is to maybe allow one room to be one period, because the house was a little tiny thing, and then they added onto it, and they added onto it. So each room has the potential of being a different period. So it'll really be an education to show, okay, here's early, then there's a little later, Revolutionary War, and then there's, post that, and then the Civil War era, and so on. So that we should vote for this and let the state give us a hand to get this done. So far, a lot of it's all been done by volunteers, so it seems like, oh, it's dragging on. Well, that's because people have jobs and lives, and there's probably 15 to 20 people that have just stepped up and done things for free, but it took them a while. So I'm all for it. I think we should get the money and get it done. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak? If not, I'm going to ask you to vote. I'm going to again read the motion because it's different. I move to authorize the Select Board to convey a perpetual historic preservation restriction encumbering the Bullard House and a portion of the Bullard House land located at 4 Woodard Avenue, Berlin, and identified by the Board of Assessors as parcel 10.3-15-0 to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, acting by and through the Massachusetts Historical Commission on such terms and conditions and for such consideration as the Select Board deems appropriate. Said portion of the parcel to include the land around the Bullard House itself, but not the land occupied by other buildings and structures on the site. I ask you to vote beginning now. Okay, I'll call the voting to a close, and we'll get our results. This is 154 yes, 40 no. That's 79% in favor, which satisfies the requirement of 2/3. The 2/3 is required because this is something that would go in the registry and be a restriction on the deed and on the ownership of the property. And Article 6. Solar pilot agreements.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming. Article 6, proposed motion. I move to authorize the Select Board, the Board of Assessors, and the Town Administrator to negotiate and execute payments in lieu of tax agreements on behalf of the town for all solar and wind-powered energy systems and co-located energy storage systems pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 45, and further, to authorize said authorized officer to take such action as may be necessary to implement such agreements.
Motion is made and seconded, and the motion is in the form that has gone out as printed. Peg?
So pretty much last year, we entered into a grant to have a company come in and help us with looking at solar. And so what this article is going to do is to allow the board here, the assessors, and Kristen, our town administrator, to enter into that negotiation and enter into payments in lieu of taxes. Otherwise, it's a pilot agreement for solar and wind-powered projects. Please keep in mind that pilot agreements do bring in revenue to the town.
Is there any comment from finance? Peg, do you have something further to add? Or you all set?
That's it.
Anyone else have a question or a comment? I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to ask you to vote. And we can start voting now. I'll close the voting. We'll get the results. Uh, 167 yes, 18 no. The motion passes with 90% voting in favor. Select Board Member Peg Stone.
Article 7, this one's a little long, so sit back. All right. I move to authorize the Select Board to enter into a power purchase agreement for the purchase of electricity and/or solar credits, a lease agreement, and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 45, Clause 45, an agreement for payment in lieu of taxes for a solar energy system to be constructed at the Town of Berlin Highway Garage at 112 West Street, each for a term of 20 or more years from the date of the commencement of commercial operations of the solar energy system, and each on such terms and conditions and for such consideration as the Select Board deems in the best interests of the town, and to authorize the Select Board to lease said property and to grant such access, utility, and other easements in, on, over, and under said property, and any contiguous town property as may be necessary or convenient to access, construct, operate, and maintain such solar system, and to authorize the Select Board to take all actions necessary in connection therewith as may be necessary to implement such agreements.
The motion is in the form that you have it on the warrant, so I will not read it again. Peg, do you have something more to say about it?
Yeah, in much simpler terms, I mean, the description pretty much says it all, is that it allows us, the Select Board, to enter into the agreements for the installation of the solar energy system at the Highway Garage for a power purchase agreement for energy credits, again, a pilot agreement for the town to receive payments, a lease agreement for the solar panels, and any easements required to enable the project to proceed. The electric bills are kind of high, shall we say, for the town barn. And what the solar panels will do will help to offset those costs and hopefully bring money back into the town.
We do not have a recommendation from the Finance Committee. Do you have any comment on it at this point? No. Anyone else want to speak on this motion? Yep. Christine Flynn.
Chris Flynn, South
close.
Street. I just want to know, is this going to make us a municipal, the town, a municipal electric supplier? No.
No, it is not.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Brenna Ewing.
I suppose it's a little late to the game, but I just wondered why we're not just buying them outright. Why aren't we buying a solar array that we own? Why are we leasing it?
I'm going to invite our town administrator, Kristen Rubin, to come up and answer the question.
Kristen Rubin, our town administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Get close.
What'd you say?
Get close to the mic.
Get closer. Okay. My apologies. It's a purchase power agreement, so it will likely generate potentially more electricity. So it allows us to enter into an agreement where electricity can be shared. It does not make us into a municipal energy department, but we would be able to sell energy to other entities because the large array that will go on the building will produce more than the highway will need to operate. Does that make sense?
Come forward and speak if you've got a question or you want to talk. Brenna Ewing.
Are we leasing the panels or buying them outright? I'm just confused.
So the solar panels would be leased through a company called Select.
Okay.
So we get an energy rebate involved in that process. So they actually help with our management of the power purchase agreement and the solar.
And they're on board to do whatever needs to be done to them, like if a tree falls on them, they're on it for maintenance. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So we
Thanks.
get energy rebates through the state too. Yep.
Anyone else? Yes. Nope, I guess not. Oh, down front? Yep.
Dave Bratton, Boylston Road. I just wanted to confirm, did we get actual quotes, though, to purchase the solar? Because in my experience, it's always been usually not in the best interest to lease the solar panels. So I just wanted to confirm that you did at least get quotes to purchase the solar panels.
Peg Stone?
We always put anything over a certain dollar amount always goes out to bid to get at least 3 bids in for the back. So yes, to answer your question, we did go out and look around. We just didn't take the first one who came to the gate.
Yes, sir.
Just to re-qualify, you mean you've sent it out to bid to purchase as well as lease?
Scott Hawkins?
I'm hoping my memory is correct on this, but I remember we had bids for both leasing and purchasing, and I agree. On my former house, I bought them. I believe, personally, it is better to buy them than lease them. Because of the way tax breaks work, the municipalities don't have access to some of those, and so it is easier for us to lease it because the company we're leasing them from can get those tax breaks and get us as good a deal as we can get. So hopefully that answers it.
I think that's all I've seen, so I will ask you to vote on this motion, and you can start voting now. I'll close the voting and we'll get our results. $183 yes, 15 no. The motion passes. Article 8, acquisition, disposition of River Run Parcel 6B. Peg Stone.
Mr. Moderator, I move to pass over Article 8 due to continued ongoing negotiations.
Motion made and seconded to pass over Article 8. Do you want to explain it further? Or?
There's just ongoing discussions that are going on, so at this point, we'd like to hold off on doing anything with this parcel of land.
Anyone else want to comment? I'll take this as a voice vote. This only requires a majority vote because it's passing over the article. It's not taking the action that was there. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Peg?
Yeah.
You have the next one?
I have the next one.
Article 9, Peg Stone.
And then I get to sit down. All right, so Article 9. I move the article to be voted as written and to transfer from free cash $17,587.67 to establish initial funding in said account, and further to accept the last paragraph of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, and dedicate without further appropriation all all opioid, that was a mouthful, settlement receipts received on or after July 1st, 2023 to the Opioid Settlement Stabilization Fund.
The motion is as it was printed previously. Peg, do you want to speak to it further?
So the town has received, if you'll remember, our Attorney General, Maura Healey, now Governor, she entered into a lawsuit with many other multiple states' attorney generals against numerous opioid manufacturers and distributors for fueling the opioid epidemic. So we've received the $17,000 and change to date. What we'd like to do is use these funds for education, prevention, and services relating to opioid use disorders.
We have a Finance Committee recommendation 4-0 in favor. Anything further from Finance? No. Anyone else want to speak to this? And this requires a 2/3 vote per the general law that it's under. The motion is the same as it was printed before. So I'm going to move on to the vote under Article 9. Please begin voting now. Excuse me. I'll close the voting. $188 yes, 6 no. The percentages are 96.91% in favor and 3.09% opposed. So it passed by the required 2/3 vote. Article 10, Community Preservation Act. Tim Wheeler, the Community Preservation Act Committee.
Good evening, Tim Wheeler, 232 Pleasant Street. I move to transfer and reserve unallocated Community Preservation Fund revenues from fiscal year 2022 as written in the warrant.
Okay, that is the same question that was written in the warrant. Finance Committee has a 4-0 recommendation. Anything further to say? Tim?
Thank you, sir. So there are 5 articles tonight that relate to the Community Preservation Act. This is the first. All 5 of these have been supported by the committee. The committee is made up of representatives from different town boards and 2 at-large members. We continue to appreciate the support the town has given the Community Preservation Act, and we believe that we're making good progress in utilizing the funds that you've allocated. This first article is some housekeeping. What we do is anticipate revenue for the next year. In an article that we'll do later, we'll be doing this for fiscal 24. We anticipate revenue, and what happens is if the revenue that we receive exceeds that amount, and we're required to place 10% of the revenue that we receive in any given year into, 3 distinct buckets, one for community housing, one for historic preservation, and one for open space and recreation. And in fiscal 22, our revenues exceeded what we anticipated, and as a result, the $10,895.30 that you see indicated here is being placed from our general budget into the specific categories that you see, those three. So it's just a housekeeping matter.
Finance Committee has a 4-0 recommendation. And is there anyone else that wants to speak to this motion? If not, I'm going to ask you to vote. Please use your electronic voter and begin voting now. The results are 153 yes and 3 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Article 11, Community Preservation Act, Fiscal Year 23 projects, Community Garden Fence. Who has the motion? James Wheeler of the Agricultural Commission.
I move to appropriate $45,000 from the fund balance reserve for open space for fiscal year 2023 for the acquisition of materials and installation of a fence at the community garden as written in the warrant.
Motion is made and seconded. Do you have anything more to say about it?
Just over 10 years ago, the Agricultural Commission got involved in starting a community garden in town. Since then, interest in the garden has grown considerably. In the last several years, we've filled all of the plots that we have available pretty consistently. There's about 40 plots down there right now. Unfortunately, as interest in the garden has grown, so has pressure from two-legged and four-legged pests. We've been dealing with some damage from animals and also some damage, stuff has been going missing from theft, unfortunately. And so what we're hoping to do is build a fence around the garden, which should help alleviate both of those issues. Not only will it protect the produce that's generated by the gardeners over the course of the season, but it will also protect a number of the town assets that are on the property, which consists of a shed. There's a well that went in recently through state funding, and then also a number of raised beds and a growing collection of tools and machinery, a lot of which has been donated by gardeners at their own personal expense. The fence that we're looking to build is a black chain link fence. It's about 622 feet of fencing. It will be about 6 feet high, about 1 foot buried in the ground as well. There will be 2 gates, double 8-foot wide gates at either end of the garden, which will enable access for farm tractors and also like the town's front end loader. The highway department's been kind enough to help us in the past with just general maintenance down there, removing old raised beds, so on and so forth. Let me check my notes. There will also be another 2 4-foot gates that will allow handicap access to the raised beds, and I believe another gate that will be facing the parking lot that will allow easy access to gardeners in general. The estimate that we arrived at was generated by a contractor that put in a very similar fence for the Hudson Community Garden. If this motion passes, then we will, of course, be going out to bid, at which point we will move forward with the most competitive bid that we're given. And then the one last thing that I just wanted to say about this is this garden caters to a really wide range of people in town. It provides handicapped access to a number of people in the form of raised beds, and it's been a great way for all sorts of people to be able to get together and socialize, but also gain access to fresh food, healthy produce. It's also been a really good way for farmers in town to interface with the community in ways that they might not be able to otherwise. A number of farmers have been able to provide services to the garden and gardeners, and have also donated time to the garden as well. And the community that's developed around the garden has a genuine interest and a proven history of giving back to the town as well. A number of gardeners on a regular basis provide food to the Berlin Food Pantry, and at one point even got together and maintained a garden plot for the purpose of providing food to the food pantry. So it's for those reasons that we feel like this is a worthwhile project for the town to support. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This has a recommendation of the CPA Committee, the Capital Planning Committee, and the Finance Committee. Does Finance have any further comment? No. Yes. Someone else wants, yes. AJ.
AJ Moses, South Street. We all know how the four-legged animals are still going to access, maybe, but will there be restricted access to only the gardeners who have a plot, or will it just be a visual barrier? Thank you.
James?
The plan at the moment is to have combination locks on the various gates, and so it will at least be apparent when somebody's hopping the fence who might not supposed to be there. There's a security camera system that we have as well, which hopefully these two systems will kind of work in tandem and help with that. We've had good luck in the past allowing gardeners access to the shed that we have down there using a combination lock, and so our assumption is that using a similar sort of system should work well now.
Anyone else that wishes to speak? Yes, come forward.
Carol Leary, Randall Road. I almost said my last name is Randall. I'm standing in for Peter Hoffman tonight because he can't be here, so I'm asking his questions. I'm only kidding, but I'm sure he'll be proud of
Would you get
me.
closer to the mic a little?
I really didn't want people to hear that. Anyway, congratulations to all those in the community garden. I've seen it grow from day one, and this year it's even bigger. At least I think it is. I haven't quite been by there because COVID has kept us at home. But you know, you did accomplish a lot in the building a community, building reserves at the food pantry, but all that was done without a fence. You personally, James, I don't mean to call you out by anyone, but you have a farm, I believe, and I think it's you win your battle by numbers, by planting a lot. And I know a community food garden does require a lot of attention, whether it's given to us the attention is brought to it by people driving by, and I think that we all are aware of what happens. I think if we see someone in the community garden at 2 o'clock in the morning, we know there's probably a problem. If it's a deer, that's another problem. However, I am battling a personal problem with my deer and tulips. So I go out every night and spray deer off. It works sometimes, sometimes it doesn't, but it's in numbers. That being said, I'm aware that the individuals who are at the garden, only because I've witnessed it, are there late and there early, and I'm sure that everyone would be willing to do their part to use a little bit of deer off. It's a lot of money to ask for just a little bit. And then the next couple, I have a question relating to the number of participants that are currently using plots at the garden. $45,000, let's assume that there's 100. That's still a lot of money per each individual for a chain link fence. And then finally, I think I might have said that already, but please forgive me, I'm getting a little nervous. At any rate, I forgot my point, but I'll let the next person ask the question. But please, if you have a question, don't just let something go by. Raise your hand and ask a question. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Walter Bickford?
Walter Bickford, 212 South Street. Listening to the reason of this, I mean, it sounds wonderful. What could be better than community gardens, people gardening, working the land, getting their hands in the land, and it's great. However, $45,000 to protect a garden. I have a garden. I've had deer problems, raccoon problems, woodchuck problems. By the way, the person who was just talks about a deer problem. Let me know your address, will you? I want to hunt there next fall. So, and I'll help you out. But anyway, I just think, have you considered putting a pole up with a battery-powered flood lamp controlled by a motion detector? $5,000 or $6,000. If there's motion on, the light goes on, people aren't going to be stealing vegetables very often. I think you ought to exhaust a cheaper, more reasonable thing than what we're doing. It just seems out of place. The other thing is, I'm not quite sure about, that's conservation land. The Conservation Commission oversees and is in charge of that land. I don't recall it coming before the Conservation Commission for discussion, and I think it should have been a vote and a discussion and a vote by the commission to make it happen. But nevertheless, $45,000 for a one item like this just isn't right. The Conservation Commission has passed up large chunks of land because we were short $30,000, $40,000, and we're spending it on a fence. I mean, I can't see it, and I hope James considers putting a pole up and a light. Maybe they have. That's just my thinking at this time.
Are there others? Paul McKelk.
Paul McKelk, Carter Street. It's not like it's $45,000 every year. If you amortize the cost over, say, 20 years, now you're looking at a little over $2,000. And a pole and a light is nice, but it's not going to do anything with rabbits. It's not going to do anything with woodchucks. It might work with deer. Walter will know that. And I think if you dig down on this, this is about community. Now, if you want to shut that down, that's certainly your prerogative and your privilege. But I think you really ought to think about the people that use this and benefit from it. And the fiber of Berlin is farming. And farmers change, they buy new equipment because they have to. They're looking for a fence.
Walter?
Walter Bickford, 212 South Street. Just by dragging this on, I'm going to lose, I know that. But nevertheless, the rabbits, every other garden in town, every person that has a garden has problems with woodchucks, deer, raccoons. I don't think that's what gardening's about, frankly. We don't need to worry about the animals. If somebody's stealing stuff, which apparently is a part of a problem, I think that a motion-detected, motion-operated floodlight would certainly go a long ways to prevent some of this. As I understand it, it's pretty serious, the amount of vegetables that are stolen and everything, but I don't know. I remember, well, we used to steal apples a lot, but but they didn't put a fence around it. Anyway, I just am against spending $45,000 on this, and I don't think I agree with Paul. We like to do community things, and this is a good thing, but you don't need the fence to do it. Thank you.
Barry, I'm right here.
Yes.
I'm all
Jan?
for the fence, but I have a favor to ask. We have a lot of children and a lot of parents here tonight. If we could please queue up like we usually do, because we're wasting a lot of time with hand raising and getting up to the mic. I see a lot of parents shaking their head. Yay, Janet. By the way, Janet Lamey, 102 Derby Road, and I am all for the fence.
MJ?
MJ Stades, 35 Carter Street, and I should say I'm on the Community Preservation Committee. I'm not necessarily speaking on their behalf, but I have some knowledge of some of this through that. 3 points I want to make very quickly. One, Walter was mentioning the cost versus the amount that conservation may be short in getting money for land and such. I just want to point out that in the few years we've had the Community Preservation Act, we have spent, can correct me if I'm wrong, about $1 million worth of it on buying land. A little less. We've gotten some money back, but this particular project was one that had come to us before, and we had pushed it off because there were land that we saw was kind of crucial at that moment. And so I don't think, I'm all for preserving land, I'm all for the other uses we have for this, but this is one of those uses as well. Second quick point to make, yes, personal gardeners have issues with animals that get in, that this is the problem that a lot of them have, and that's why some of those people who have would be gardening at their home choose to use the community gardens as a place that may be a little more controllable than their own personal property. So it's not that we're just, this is a problem we can solve for some people here. And just a third quick point in terms of it coming to community preservation, or not going before the Conservation Commission, that's one reason why the Conservation Commission, along with another number of boards in town, have a representative on the Community Preservation Commission to begin with to represent those interests. Thank you.
Bernard Ewing.
Hi, real quick. I just wanted to point out that the proximity of this wonderful garden to Riverbridge and newcomers to the town who may never have experienced their hands in the soil. I think the fence is a great idea just for that purpose alone, to show those people that we, if one of them were to join on the garden this year and then they lost everything to a woodchuck, they're going to throw up their hands and go, oh, that was stupid. But this is an opportunity to kind of encourage people that have never had a part in the earth to enjoy this right to farm thing that we have going on here, so thank you.
In a minute.
Okay.
Sorry to take this opportunity to introduce myself to the town, but my name is Michael Sheehan. I'm from 88 Allen Road. And
You got to get closer to the mic and tell us who you are.
When I grew up farming in Hudson, Mass., we never put a chain link fence around anything, and that's Hudson, Mass., where there's a larger population, and a large, tall chain link fence in the town of Berlin I don't think has much of a place anywhere. I think that there's proper mitigation that you can do to use high-heart traps, things of that nature, to learn how to trap responsibly animals that are causing problems for your issues that you're having at your garden, in a sense that this fence is to be bedded a foot below the soil. What is the mitigation? What are you doing at the entrance and the egress of this to not allow these varmints from attacking your crops? That's a question.
Are you done?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Barbara Huntley, 23 Pleasant Street. We were hit by rabbits and raccoons on our garden too, and what do? We put up a fence, just saying.
Suzanne?
Kate Bliss, Randall Road. Call to question.
Motion to the question. Is there a second? I will take the other reaction as the second. That means that we will now vote to cut off debate. If we, can you get that set up? We will take a, we'll take a vote as to whether to stop debate and go on to the actual vote on the issue at hand. Because we're cutting off debate, takes away people's right to speak. It requires a 2/3 vote. So as soon as we're set up, we will vote on our electronic devices. Wait till we're ready.
Yes vote to move the question, correct?
Hmm?
Yes vote to move the question, correct?
And the maker of the motion needs to give me a written motion to that effect, too. Okay, we're now voting to call the question. If you vote in favor, that means we stop the debate and move to vote on the issue. If you vote no, then if it turns out to be a no vote, we would continue our debate. At this time, I'll ask you to vote on whether to cut off debate, yes or no. Okay. I'm going to close the voting on that, and we will get the result. 178 yes, 13 no. The motion carries by the 2/3 vote. At this time, we will prepare for our next vote, and that is the vote on the motion that's under the article to appropriate $45,000 from the fund balance reserved for open space for fiscal year 2023 for the acquisition of materials and installation of a fence at the community garden as written in the warrant. And we will vote by electronic means, so please start recording your votes now. All right, I'm going to stop the voting and we will get our answers. So the motion carries in the affirmative. Okay, Article 12 is the fiscal year 2024 operating budget. And we will have a series of motions from the Finance Committee, which will be based on the material in the back of your warrant booklet. And we'll also include the material on the blue sheet, which is an insert, and that is the last page of the budget, which had some corrections from the previous edition. Janet Lamy, do you have the first motion?
I do.
Okay.
Lucky me. I move to raise and appropriate $1,542,136 to fund items 1 through 45 as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY 2024.
That is a recommendation of the Finance Committee as it's been printed. Do you want to say anything about that one, Janet, further?
It's just the general government of the town. If you have any questions, you can ask. This
is the first page of the budget and a little bit onto the second
it's
page.
on blue.
This passes, we will have approved all of those budget items. Anyone have any questions about that or comments? Hearing none, I will ask you to vote. Please vote electronically. Okay, I'll close the voting, and I will ask you to, and we will get the results. If you have a concern, come up here and tell me. I can't hear you from there. You've got to come up to the microphone. What?
People are still voting.
People are still trying to vote, Mary.
I think we've stopped now, so I'm going to stop it. We'll get the results.
148, 14.
148 yes and 14 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. The next section is public safety.
This is
Janet
section
Langley.
200, public safety. I move to raise and appropriate $2,259,989 to fund items 46 through 64. Transfers from the Public Safety Special Stabilization Fund, $262,297 to item 47, police wages full-time, and to appropriate from the ambulance receipt reserved for the appropriation of $100,000 to item 51, fire and EMS wages full-time, for the sum total $2,622,286 as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY 2024. This is just our entire public safety budget.
I'm going to read the motion again. I move to raise and appropriate $2,259,989. That means we get that money from taxes. To fund items 46 through 64. Transfer from Public Safety Special Stabilization Fund $262,297 to item 47, police wages full-time. And to appropriate from ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation $100,000 to item 51, fire and EMS wages full-time, for the sum total of $2,622,286 as recommended by the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2024. This includes in it money from the Special Stabilization Fund, and therefore it will require a two-thirds vote. Anybody want to speak to this motion? Any part, this is the time when you can question or talk about any part of the public safety budget. Hmm? No, it's one vote. It's a motion, it's one motion, so it's one vote. Okay, if I'm not hearing anything, I'm going to call for you to vote. You may start voting now on your electronic voting device. I'll call a halt to the voting, and we will take the numbers. $166 yes, 20 no. The motion passes by the required 2/3 vote. $89.25% in favor. Mary Porter of the Finance Committee.
Mr. Moderator, under Section 400 Public Works motion, I move to raise and appropriate $781,448 to fund items 65 through 75, to appropriate from the transfer station sticker and recycling offset receipts account the sum of $4,615, to item 73 transfer station wages part-time, and the sum of $120,000 to item 74 transfer station expenses, and to appropriate the sum of $12,450 from general cemetery receipts and the sum of $1,100 from sale of lots to item 75 cemetery expenses, for the sum total $919,613 as recommended by the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2024.
I'll read that motion again. I move to raise and appropriate $781,448 to fund items 65 through 75, to appropriate from the transfer station sticker and recycling offset receipts account the sum of $4,615 to item 73 transfer station wages part-time, and the sum of $120,000 to item 74 transfer station expenses, and to appropriate the sum of $12,450 from general cemetery receipts and the sum of $1,100 from sale of lots to item 75 cemetery expenses, for the sum total of $919,613 as recommended by the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2024. Does anyone want to speak to that motion or ask a question? Hearing none, I will ask you to vote on this motion. And you may start voting now. I will close the voting and we'll get our numbers. 175 yes, 11 no. The motion passes in the affirmative. Human Services. Janet?
This is the Human Service. I move to raise and appropriate $126,957 to fund items 76 and 87 as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY 2024.
The motion is to raise and appropriate $126,957, no, 59 to fund items 76 through 87 as recommended by the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2024.
It's 57, I believe, Barry.
Hmm?
Kristen, can you speak to that? We have a little clerical typo error, so I'm going to have let Kristen speak to it.
We have a rounding error. It's off by $1. So it should be $126,958.
So how come we have 92,578 there?
Let me have that back, Barry. Kristen thought my motion was 57 and it was 58. So I had, is it, so my motion was right. Yeah, I was just explaining. Oh, okay, but I thought you wanted me to say 7. So now there's a little confusion on my part. So let me reread the motion as it's supposed to read. I move to raise and appropriate $126,958 to fund items 76 through 87 as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY 2024.
Please explain to me why it says 92,575 instead of 126,958.
You need to use the blue sheet.
What?
The blue sheet.
Oh, the blue sheet.
Yeah.
Okay. The blue sheet. Yes, I had that in mind before, didn't I? Okay. Anybody else have something to say about this? If not, I'm going to ask you to vote on the Human Services motion, which is $126,958 for items 76 through 87. You may start voting now. I'll close the voting. $170 yes, 15 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Next one is Culture and Recreation. Mary Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is for you, Julie. Section 600, Culture and Recreation motion. I move to raise and appropriate $193,529 to fund items 88 through 94 as recommended by the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2024.
Motion made and seconded for $193,529. Okay. Anyone want to speak to that? Seeing no one, I will ask you to vote. You can vote by electronic means, starting now. I will stop the voting now, and we'll get our answers.
178, yes. 14 no.
178 yes, 14 no. Motion carries by simple majority. Debt and interest.
This is 700, debt and interest motion. I move to raise and appropriate $291,175 to fund items 95 and 96 as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY 2024.
$291,175. Anything to be said on this motion? Debt and interest. Seeing nothing, I'm going to ask you to vote. Please vote electronically and start voting now. I will close the voting.
5-9 yes.
159 yes, 10 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Yes, Scott.
Item 97, Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. I move to raise and appropriate $974 to fund item 97 as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY 24.
Motion is made and seconded for $974 to cover line item 97, Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. Anything to be said on this motion? Hearing nothing, I'll ask you to vote. Vote electronically, please. Starting now. Call a halt to the voting, and we will get our results.
166 yes, 15 no.
166 yes, 15 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Scott?
Item 98, Assabet Regional Housing Consortium. I move to appropriate from the Affordable Housing Account $7,000 to fund item 98 as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY24.
Item 98, Assabet Regional Housing Consortium. The amount is $7,000. Anything to be said on this motion? Seeing nobody's hand up, I will call for a vote. You may start voting now electronically. I'll close the voting. Our results are
158 yes, 19 no.
19 no.
19 no.
158 yes, 19 no. Motion carries in the affirmative.
Items 99 and 100, Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School. I move to raise and appropriate $771,568 to fund items 99 and 100 as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY24 as follows. Item 99, Assabet Assessment, $705,398. Item 100, Assabet Capital Assessment, $66,170.
The numbers are the same as you have on the blue sheet. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I will ask you to vote. Please vote electronically and start voting now. I will close the voting now, and we'll get our results.
157 yes, 21 no.
157 yes, 29 no. The motion carries in the affirmative. Next one is Berlin Memorial. Scott?
Yes, items 101 and 102, Berlin Memorial School. I move to raise and appropriate $3,924,434 and to transfer from free cash $382,715 to fund item 101 and to transfer from free cash $468,410 to fund item 102 Berlin Memorial Capital Assessment as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY24 as follows. Item 101, Berlin Memorial Assessment, $4,307,149. Item 102, Berlin Memorial Capital Assessment, $468,410.
These are the same numbers you have on the blue sheet. Are there questions or comments?
Yeah, get
Scott, you
some
wanna talk?
explanation here. So this was one of the most contentious, I think, of trying to come to a conclusion for a budget in all my years being on the Finance Committee. So the simple point came down to is the Finance Committee got to a point of recommending increase about 9.1% for, I think it's BMS. That still left a gap of over $700,000 for funding both basically the level services budget and the increased costs due to particularly special education out of district tuition. We came to an agreement with the school committee that an additional $350,000 will be expended from circuit breaker funds and school choice funds that the school committee has control over, and an additional $382,000, and the exact amount there of the free cash would be used to plug the rest of the hole. We felt this was the best compromise in this situation to, one, keep the actual levy increase that we are talking about here to a minimum on the property taxes, while waiting until next year when we get reimbursement from the state for some of that out-of-district special education tuition money. Basically, the state funds it 1 year in arrears. We won't get 100% back. We have to spend a certain amount per child, and after that we get 75%, assuming the state continues to fund as they have done in the past. So it is a way to plug the gap without completely going really crazy on what the levy increase would be. The total levy increase, while our target was 2.5%, is going to be 4%, primarily from the budget from the schools here. And BMS, there was also some very late breaking news that came in with significant increase in costs to that special education of district tuition costs. So as a result, I understand that the school committee voted earlier today. If you looked at line on the blue sheet, line 101, under the column FY24 requested, the figure of $4,657,149 is decreased by $350,000 to $4,307,149. That actually accounts for the schools using an additional $350,000 for out-of-district money, and also our school choice, I should say, money, and the circuit breaker, which is the reimbursement from the state for special education. And that will plug the gap so there is no deficit for what the requested was from the school.
Other questions further on this? If not, I'm going to read the motion one more time because it has been revised because of the negotiations that have taken place. I move to raise and appropriate $3,924,434 and to transfer from free cash $382,715 to fund item 101, and to transfer from free cash $468,410 to fund item 102, Berlin Memorial Capital Assessment, as recommended by the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2024 as follows. Item 101, Berlin Memorial Assessment, $4,307,149. And item 102, Berlin Memorial Capital Assessment, $468,410. We will now vote electronically on that. You may start voting. I will close the voting. Excuse me.
156 yes, 27 no.
156 yes, 27 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Mr. Schultz.
Items 103 through 105, Tohoto Regional Middle High School. I move to raise and appropriate $3,649,133 to fund items 103 and 105, and to transfer from free cash $211,599 to fund item 104 as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY24 as follows. Item 103, Tohoto Assessment, $3,206,381. Item 104, Tohoto Capital Assessment, $211,599. And item 105, Tohoto Debt Repayment, $442,752.
Motion's made and seconded, and the numbers are the same as what you have on the blue sheet. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, I will ask you to vote. We will vote electronically. I will close the voting.
149 yes, 23 no.
149 yes, 23 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Okay. Benefits and insurance. Mary Porter.
Mr. Moderator, Under Section 900, Miscellaneous Benefits and Insurance, I move to raise and appropriate $1,672,236 to fund items 106 through 113 as recommended by the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2024.
This motion agrees with the items on the blue sheet for benefits and insurance. Anyone want to speak on this motion? I will ask you to vote. Please vote electronically starting now. I'll close the voting.
144 yes, 13 no.
144 yes, 13 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Well, that wasn't too painful. We'll wait for the tax bills to decide how painful it is. Yes? You have a motion? What's this? What am I? Where am I? Where am I? We're now back to Article 13, Capital Improvement Plan.
Right here.
Anna Crane of the Capital Planning Committee.
Anna Crane, Highland Street, Chair Capital Planning. I move to transfer $911,898 from free cash and $880,000 from public safety stabilization to fund the fiscal year 2024 capital improvement plan budget for the projects and items as printed in Article 13 of the warrant for this meeting, recommended by the Capital Planning Committee as listed.
Motion is made and seconded. It is the motion that is in your printed warrant, and you have the list of 13 items that are part of the capital planning budget. Anna, do you want to speak to that?
We have 13 items we recommend purchasing. They're listed. Any questions? We've already approved 2 of them, the BMS Capital and the Tohoto Capital. And the rest I'm happy to answer questions about.
We have the Capital Planning Committee's recommendation and the Finance Committee recommendation. Finance Committee have anything further to say? So this listing is as it was in the warrant. Excuse me. Are there questions or comments from anyone? Hearing none, I will ask you to vote. We'll vote electronically, starting now. I'll close the voting.
142 yes, 19 no.
I will, I'll take a percentage on that too, please. We have, it certainly is a 2/3 majority. We need a 2/3 majority for the item that is from public safety stabilization. The others would all go through with a simple majority vote. (88.2% in favor). And Article 14. I want this to go faster. Cable Access Committee PEG spending. Yes.
Roger Bradley, Linden Street. I move to appropriate from the Public Educational and Government PEG Access and Cable Related Fund the sum of $78,640 as a grant to be used for fiscal year 2024 operating purposes in accordance with PEG Access Grant and Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F and 3/4, said sums to be expended by the Cable Access Committee.
Motion made and seconded. It's the amount that was printed in your warrant. Finance Committee has recommended it. Does the Finance Committee have a further comment? Roger, did you want to speak to it further?
No.
Okay. This is money we get from the cable people, and we can't use it for anything else. So, anybody else, anybody want to speak on it? If not, I'll ask you to vote electronically. Starting now. I'll close the voting.
121 yes, 2 no.
121 to 2. Motion passes. Scott Hawkins.
Article 15, I move the town vote to pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Chapter 53E and a half, to establish a revolving fund for bucket truck expenses and to amend the table under Article 20, the Town of Berlin's general bylaws by inserting said revolving fund, as I believe printed.
Motion's made and seconded, and you have the rest of what goes with the motion in regard to the bucket truck expenses shown in your warrant. Scott?
We have bought a bucket truck to help us trim trees in town jointly with the town of Clinton. When they borrow it from us, since it's jointly owned, they give us some funds for repairs and other things like that, and we need a fund to put that money in because we promised Clinton that money would go towards fixing the truck.
Finance Committee comment? Is there a comment from the Finance Committee on this? No. Anybody else that wants to speak on it? Hearing no one, I will ask you to vote. Vote electronically. Begin now. I'll close the voting.
122 yes, 2 no.
122 yes, 2 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Article 16, revolving fund annual spending limits.
I move
Hawkins.
I move to fix the maximum amount that may be spent during fiscal year '24, beginning on July 1st, 2023, for the revolving funds established under Article 20 of the Town General Bylaws for certain departments, boards, committees, or officers in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, as written in the warrant.
The motion is as it was printed. Any questions about it or comments? Hearing none, I'll ask you to vote. Please vote electronically. Starting now. I'm going to call a halt to the voting, and the results are
117 yes, 6 no.
117 yes, 6 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Mr. Hawkins.
Article 17, I move the town appropriate from free cash the sum of $7,057.75 as required by the Boston Business Services Payroll Fraud Restitution Settlement to the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Agency.
That's the same motion that was printed previously. Scott, you want to speak of it?
Yes, many years ago, there was a payroll service we had actually didn't pay the taxes that we paid them to put in the state. Our insurance company came to our rescue and actually paid the amount that we were defrauded from. That company has been making some restitution that comes to us. We've promised to give it back to the insurance company that gave us the money in the first place.
Finance Committee has a positive recommendation. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on the subject? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. Please vote electronically now. I'll close the voting.
yes, 3 no.
108 to 3. Motion carries in the affirmative. Article 18, adjusted asset limit. Peg Stone.
Not to put a damper on this evening, but the Celtics lost, in case anyone's interested. I know, bummer. All right, Article 18. I move to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 17E, regarding adjusted asset limits as written in the warrant.
Motion is made and seconded as it was in the original warrant. You want to address this, Peg?
The description is long, but the Reader's Digest version basically is that we are adjusting the exemption for inflation to provide extra relief for seniors. This addresses assets.
Anyone else want to speak on this? Finance Committee have a comment? No. Anyone else? If not, I'm going to ask you to vote. Please vote electronically. Starting now. I will close the voting.
113 yes, 2 no.
113 yes, 2 no. Article 19, Peg.
Article 19, I move to adjust income and asset limits set forth in Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41D.
This is the same motion that was given before. That was given, printed ahead of time. Do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, the description is pretty much the same as the previous article, Article 18. This one takes into account COLA increases, so cost of living increases. So it's assets and income.
Anyone else want to speak? If not, I'm going to ask you to vote. Please vote electronically. Start now. I'll call a halt to the voting.
112 yes, 4 no.
112 yes, 4 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Tim Wheeler, Community Preservation Act.
Tim Wheeler, 232 Pleasant Street. Article 20, I move to approve the fiscal year 24 Community Preservation Act budget as written in the warrant.
You want to speak to it, Tim?
Yes, sir. So the next three articles pertain to the Community Preservation Act. This first one is establishment of the expenditure of funds that we anticipate from, well, the placement of funds that we anticipate for fiscal 24. And then the second two articles will be for projects that the Community Preservation Act Committee has supported unanimously. I do want to make a point, though, that the goal of the Community Preservation Act Committee has always been to try to leverage the money as much as we possibly can. And the $850,000 that you committed over the last several years to the purchase of the Mount Pisgah property resulted in a matching grant from the state to match not only the money that CPA expended, but some additional funds. And I'm told by Carolyn, I'm stealing her thunder here, that we expect a check this week for $864,000. So congratulations, you expended that money, leveraged it, and managed to pull back $864,000, which will go, $850 go to CPA, and it means that we can leverage again that money to accomplish a number of other goals that we may have over the next few years. Yeah, well done. Yeah, it's. And the other point I guess I'd make about CPA is that as a result of being a community that voted to participate at the 3% level, for the last 2 years, our match from the state has been 100% of what we generated as fee income here in Berlin. So the money that we're voting here tonight in this article, a substantial amount of it is coming back as a match from the state. And there were only 14 towns in the Commonwealth that received the 100% match. So again, being a small community that stepped up and voted the 3% has made a significant difference. So in this particular case, we've got about $605,000 or $6,000 that can be put into the coffers of the CPA. And as you can see, there are three categories: community housing, historic reserve, and open space, which also includes recreation, that receive the 10% required amount of over $60,000. And again, these will be funds that will be available for us as we move forward. And some of the articles that you see tonight will use funds that we generated in past years, and then in the future we'll have an opportunity to expend some of this money. But again, thank you for your support.
We have positive recommendations from the Community Preservation Act Committee, the Capital Planning Committee. No, I'm in the wrong one. We have Community Preservation Act Committee and Finance Committee have unanimous recommendations in favor of this. There we go. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on this motion? Hearing no one, I will ask you to vote, and please vote electronically, starting now. Call a halt to the voting.
110 yes, 4 no.
110 yes, 4 no. Article 21, Community Preservation Act, fiscal year 24 projects, land acquisition.
I move to authorize the Select Board to acquire by gift, purchase gift, and/or eminent domain 6.5 acres of the parcel of land located at 72 Carter Street for open space purposes, the care, custody, and control of which shall be held by the Conservation Commission pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8C, and appropriate and transfer $125,000 from the FY 2023 CPA budgeted reserve to fund said acquisition and costs related thereto, and further authorize the Select Board to grant or reserve a conservation restriction on said parcel under General Law, Chapter 184, subsection 31-33, as required by General Law, Chapter 44B, Section 12A, as written in the warrant.
This is the same motion that was printed and went out to the people earlier, so I won't read it now. Yes, Carolyn?
So this is a parcel of land, 72 Carter Street. The house is across from Wheeler's Garage, and the house and the land is 8.5 acres. We have been given the opportunity by the property owner to preserve the 6.5 acres of land, to split the house off with the 2 acres, sell that. They're going to sell that at a market rate, and then the 6.5 acres will have a conservation restriction on it. So the reason we're interested in this is several things. First of all, if you're standing at the library looking west, that hill that is there, this parcel is half of that hill. So it is one of the things we want to do is preserve the scenic value of the center of town. I mean, that hill, Powder House Hill, is the center of town, is part of the center of town. I grab my little notes here. So the property owner would like to see this land preserved. Preserves the scenic value of the center of town. There's also, I've been told, an issue of water in the center of town. By the town owning this, when we write the conservation restriction, we will write in there that the town will be allowed to put a well for municipal purposes should that really come to fruition, that that's going to be needed. And then the other thing is that it will provide some open space in Carterville. We've got pockets of open space all around town. Carterville is one of the densest areas of town, and it will provide some open space there.
Yeah. Brenna Ewing? We have unanimous recommendations on this from Community Preservation Act Committee, the Capital Planning Committee, and the Finance Committee. I would also note that it's got to be a 2/3 vote because we're acquiring land. Yes.
So Brenna Ewing, Pleasant Street. I'm curious as to what is the access point? Is this going to be landlocked land once the building is sold? How is this going to work to the advantage of the townspeople as far as using it for public use. And I would like to say that I, as a lifelong resident, know about the shortage of water access, and if we might need water in the future, it's probably a really good idea just for that reason alone. But please answer.
So there will be an easement on the property on Carter Street. If anybody's familiar with the property, there's the house, then there's a small garage, and next to the garage, there's a wetland area that is a separate piece of property, so the easement will be between the property line and the garage. Yep.
Does anyone else want to speak?
It's right here, and it's this blue shaded piece, and the easement will come across up here. Well, really the easement is just a small portion of the lot. The rest of it will be the land that we own. There's a short easement needed.
Town council wants to address this, so let's hear from him.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. May be heard. Thank you. In my opinion, it's just a majority vote for this particular article because it involves the appropriation of money to purchase conservation land using CPA funds, and there's no eminent domain or borrowing contemplated in the article. Thank you.
So it's only a simple majority vote because it's CPA money for conservation land. Okay. Anybody else? I will ask you to vote. This is for the acquisition of the land on Carter Street, 72 Carter Street. Please vote now electronically. We'll close the voting.
92 yes, 18 no.
92 yes, 18 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Article 22, Pavilion.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate and transfer $150,000 from the CPA FY23 budgeted reserve for the South Common Pavilion project as written in the warrant.
This is the same motion that was printed and sent out originally. Tim?
My name is Bob Holmes. I'm here representing Recreation Committee. I live at 57 Ball Hill Road. This project will construct an open-air pavilion at the South Common site for community use. We brought a visual aid. There it is. Feel free to come up if you can't see it. We believe this project will provide significant value broadly across the community. The pavilion's 25 feet wide by 44 feet long, built on a concrete pad. We'll have an improved walkway from the parking lot to facilitate access. It's included with the pavilion are 6 commercial-grade picnic tables, solar-powered security lighting, and some modest landscaping. As a committee, we'd like to improve the functionality and accessibility of South Commons, and having a shaded and covered outdoor gathering area would enable a wide array of uses. We see this pavilion as an outdoor meeting spot for community interest groups, a location for educational talks, lectures, concerts, a place to hold social events, birthday parties, and really an informal place to just escape the summer sun when you're down there enjoying the green space that we have in our town. A yes vote would approve the use of the $150,000 in CPA funds that have already been set aside. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions or comments? We have positive recommendations, unanimous recommendations from Community Preservation Act Committee, Capital Planning Committee, and Finance Committee. Yeah. Christine.
Chris Flynn, South Street. I'm just wondering where you're proposing to put this in South Common area. Where's the location going to be of that pavilion?
Sorry, I failed to mention. So the plan is to have it basically equidistant from the pond, the courts, the parking lot, and the playground. So we have that little dirt parking lot. So it'll be within walking distance from there. We'll have a path created from that parking lot.
You mentioned there's going to be lighting. Is the lighting going to be limited to the property? In other words, will the light stay on the property and not go to the neighbors?
You mean shining light towards the neighbors? That's correct. Yeah, they're not there to illuminate the pavilion for use purposes. It's really just for safety and security at night. So they're solar lights that'll be installed in the eaves of the pavilion that will light up just to cast a little bit of light down below, so you can see what's happening from the road in the evening.
Thank you. Anyone else? Brenna Ewing.
I just want to say that Green Hill Park in Worcester has a very, very similar pavilion that gets a lot of use and is really awesome. So I think this is a really good idea.
Heidi Petard, 138 Derby Road. You mentioned how it's going to be used for birthdays and social events and so forth. Who's managing that to prevent conflict?
Great question. So we're envisioning a first come, first served style approach, but we will have an online reservation site that you can use. So you can reserve it in advance, but if no one's reserved it, it's a first come, first served.
Jim McNichol.
Yes, Jim McNichol, 113 Boylston Road. Just curious in the siting, now that you said where it would be, who is conservation or site plan review reviewing that in that closest setting to the water and the drainage through that area, and how is that all being addressed?
So, so this project did go through our Community Preservation Act Committee that has a representative from conservation on it. It was deemed low risk from that standpoint. When we do the exact siting on the property, we'll certainly want to look at runoff, how we manage erosion control, and things like that with respect to the pond. But it's on our mind.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to ask you to vote. Please vote electronically, starting now. We'll stop the voting and get our answers.
90 yes, 21 no.
90 yes, 21 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. General stabilization account. Scott Schultz.
I move the town vote to transfer $307,729 from free cash to the general stabilization account.
This is the same as it was when it went out in your warrant. And this motion is coming from Finance Committee with a 4-0 vote. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to the motion? This will take money in free cash and put it into the general stabilization fund. Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. Starting now, electronically. I'll close the voting.
87 yes, 5 no.
87 yes, 5 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Amend the Town of Berlin zoning district map. Carolyn McDonald of the Planning Board.
Carolyn McDonald, Gates Pond Road. I move to amend the Town of Berlin zoning district map as written in the warrant.
You have a long list of maps and parcel numbers, amounts as small as 30,000 square feet and as large as 30 acres, 75 acres, etc. And it includes several things that we have bought in recent times. You're going to speak to it?
The Berlin Planning Board held a public hearing on April 11, 2023 to consider comments concerning Article 24 on the annual town meeting warrant to be held May 1st, 2023. At the Planning Board meeting also held on Tuesday, April 11th, 2023, Planning Board voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed to Article 26. So there's a lot of parcels here. There is a map, the same map that was shown before. These are all parcels that the town already owns. They're already in conservation in one form or another. The Wendler property, 40 Caves, Mount Pisgah, the little 30,000 square foot parcel is the parking lot for Brewer Brook hiking on Pleasant Street. The Lyman Road, one of them's the Linden Street, one of them's the Old Divine property. Mount Pisgah, the Tyler property down on River Road. So this is kind of a housekeeping thing. It's to take it out of residential agricultural and add the additional layer of agricultural, residential agricultural conservation is all this is.
We need the planning board's report to the town clerk. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on this motion? Hearing no one, I will ask you to vote. Please vote electronically, starting now. I'll close the voting.
Results are 89 yes, 9 no.
89 yes, 9 no. Motion carries in the affirmative. That's a 2/3 vote. We should get a percentage for that.
Yes.
90.82% in favor.
9.18 no.
Article 26. No, Article 25. Acceptance as a public way for Gibbs Road.
Tom Sanford, 425 Sawyer Hill Road. Mr. Moderator, I move to accept Gibbs Road as a public way and authorize the Select Board to acquire, by purchase, gift, and/or eminent domain, the fee to and/or public way and other easements, and approve Article 25 as written in the warrant.
You want to comment on it further?
Certainly. At the Planning Board meeting held on Monday, May 1st, 2023, the Planning Board voted 5 in favor, 0 opposed to support Article 25.
Tell them where Gibbs Road is.
Certainly. Gibbs Road is off of Peach Hill Road.
Anyone else want to comment? Mary?
Mary Porter, 8 Highland Street. Tom, could you tell us why the town would accept the private road and take it in, take on the cost of it? And what is the length of the road? Is it a cul-de-sac? That kind of thing.
So the road is a cul-de-sac. There was a subdivision proposed to the town. They built it to road standards, highway standards. Highway has inspected that and is certified to the planning board that it meets that. And typically the town will accept subdivision roads once they're completed. And we do get money from the state for the length of roads that we accept and maintain in the town.
Does anyone else want to speak? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. Electronically, please, starting now. I'll stop the voting. We'll get the...
$73 yes, 23 no.
$73 yes, 23 no. The motion carries in the affirmative. And the next one, Article 26, is Pollard Road. Jay Teach.
Jay Teach, 220 Sawyer Hill Road. I move to accept Pollard Road as a public way and authorize the Select Board to acquire by purchase, gift, and/or eminent domain the fee and/or public way and other easements, and approve Article 26 as written in the warrant.
This is the same motion that came out with the warrant in the first place. You want to speak to it?
Yep.
Jay?
At the Planning Board meeting also held on Monday, May 1st, 2023, the Planning Board voted 5 in favor, 0 opposed to Article 26.
Would you give that to the town clerk, please? Does anyone else want to speak on this motion?
Should I explain why this is?
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a small 5 single-family home subdivision on the west end of West Street. It's called West Street
Get
Crossing.
closer to the mic.
It's called West Street Crossing. It's close to 5 Points, and as Tom mentioned on the last one, the developer met our requirements, and we agreed to. We would like to accept the road to the town.
Anyone else want to speak on this motion? Hearing none, I will ask you to vote. Please vote now, electronically. I will close the voting. Get the results. $73 yes, 20 no. The motion carries in the affirmative.
He knew what I was doing.
Article 27 is the election article.
Thank
Scott
you, everyone,
Hawkins.
for making it to the end of the meeting. We'll see how many of you made it into that selfie a second ago. I move to adjourn this meeting to Monday, May 8th, 2023 at noon at the Berlin Town offices, 23 Linden Street, lower level, at which time and place the polls will be open until 8 p.m. for the election of town officers under Article 77 of the... Article 77?
Article 27.
My piece of paper says 77, but it is
Well,
27
you can
of the
fix it.
warrant for this meeting. And upon the announcement of the results, this meeting be dissolved. The polls are open at noon and close at 8 p.m.
Okay, we got a couple of things I need to take care of. The town clerk reminds us that there is early voting available during the town clerk's office hours in this week for the election next week. And And then we go on to the Article 27 motion to adjourn this meeting to Monday, May 8th at 12 o'clock noon in the Berlin Town offices, 23 Linden Street, lower level, at which time and place the polls will be open until 8 p.m. for the election of town officers under Article 27 of the warrant for this meeting, and that upon the announcement of the results of the election, this meeting be dissolved. Before I call for the vote, I want to say that I want to ask you to please help us pick up the chairs. We have caddies in the back, and the ones that don't fit on the caddies can go against the wall over near this door on the side. Thank you. Vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Unanimous vote.